Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown, and I am your host and moderator for this evening. We're so very excited that you all are here, that you are joining us from everywhere that you are. We ask that you share. Welcome, Facebook Live. So glad to see you. YouTube, welcome. Twitter, welcome. Everybody, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we say welcome, welcome, welcome. I am just excited about this conversation. But before we get into it, tell us where you're watching from. Shout it out. Make sure you put it in the comment section so we can know, so that I can make sure that I shout out where everyone is looking from. Okay. So Colleen, Texas, so grateful for Albert Reed, faithful. Thank you for being here pretty much every week. And Chuck Hunt, also faithful. Monroe, Louisiana, we say welcome. Great evening to you. Angelisa G. Wallace, Sean Jenkins from Metro Atlanta, grateful. Please put down where you are from. Perryville, Maryland, love it. Yes, Maria Harris, welcome. Denver, Colorado is here. She's watching on YouTube. Yes, Joy Palmer, I see you. Good evening from Brooklyn. I love it. Share, share, share. Luke Glasgow, thank you for being here tonight. Watching for years. We appreciate you. Tell me where you're from, Luke. Siegfried, Pastor Siegfried Benton. Welcome, Pastor. Temple Hills, Maryland is here. Pastor Melissa is here. Pastor Melissa McQueen Simmons. Charlotte, North Carolina is in the house. Oh, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Share, share, share this conversation. We promise you that it's going to be a wonderful conversation on tonight. We're welcoming all of you here on tonight. Thank you, Luke from Missouri. We appreciate you being on tonight. There's some other people that I know that are still yet coming in. We want to give them the opportunity. We hope that you all are having a very good summer so far. I see you, T Mark. Blessings to you. Durham, North Carolina is in the house, right? So I see some North Carolina saints popping up. We are so glad that you are joining us on this evening. We ask that you share the Facebook Live or the YouTube or whatever you're watching from. Blessings, Minister Sandy. Blessings to you. Paris, California is here on tonight. And so we're looking forward to having this wonderful conversation on tonight with this great author, Bishop Levi Richards, my spiritual father. Love you too, Dad. Glad you're here with us from New York City, from Harlem. And so we're so grateful for that. I know there are others that are still yet coming in, and we appreciate you sharing this conversation on tonight so that people will know what is happening. And so I'm going to move on. I appreciate you all. I know that you all will continue to share the conversation and let folks know what it is that we're talking about. And so here we go. We're so grateful to bring to us tonight author, speaker, and songwriter Amanda Held Opelt, who has authored a book that has come out about a month ago or so, published a month ago, and it's called Holy Unhappiness, God, Goodness. I'm sorry, I can't see the bottom piece of it, but thank you. God is called God, Goodness, in the Myth of the Blessed Life. Ha! That piece took me out. Amanda, come on up here, because that last piece right there, that's what took me out. Right there.
Well, it took me out too.
It took me out. Hello, Amanda. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for saying yes to this conversation on tonight. I really appreciate it. And when I saw Holy Unhappiness, I said, let me read this and let me find out what is she talking about. And so I'm grateful that I did. I'm glad to have this conversation with you. And as you can see, people are watching with us from all over the place.
I
Uh,
see some North Carolina folks. I'm
North
up here
Carolina
in
folks.
Boone.
That's right.
T Mark and Pastor McQueen Simmons. It's going to be
Exactly.
78 degrees up here in Boone, up at 3,000 feet. If y'all need to cool off, come see
I,
me.
I'm told that it is good and hot. I see there's Mary McCoy and Denise Fortson. Y'all tell us where y'all from so that we can make sure that we shout you out. Amanda, let's get started. First of all, again, thank you for being on Beyond the Gatekeepers. And of course, to the audience, please forgive us tonight. Bishop Flunder could not be here. She has a previous engagement, but nevertheless, we continue on. And of course, you know, this is Beyond the Gatekeepers, current events through a theological and justice informed lens. And so we're so glad that you all are here. Okay, Denise, thank you. Brooklyn is in the house. Long Island, Pastor Eunice is on. Amanda, tell me first, very easy question. What made you write this book?
Oh, how many hours do we have, Bishop Brown? I'll tell you, I think what this book has really been in the works for 5 or 6 years. I was going through a season in my life where I realized that I had kind of checked all the boxes in terms of the things that I thought were supposed to make my life happy, that were supposed to make my life good, to make it successful, to make it prosperous. I had done all the things, and yet I was still struggling with this sense of restlessness and discontent. And I started to become curious about this, wondering if maybe some of the expectations I had of what the good life should look like were false or misinformed. And this really came to a head, I think, when I was thinking about my work and my calling and my vocation, because I had always had in my mind that if I could find my calling, right, find that one specific job, that ministry that God had designed and purposed for me, then I would be fulfilled and life would be exciting and my work would be exciting, right? Find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. You ever heard that?
Yes, I
Well,
have.
I'm not sure I think that axiom is
No,
true
I
anymore.
don't think so. I
I
don't think
don't
so.
I
I
don't
think
think it is. Because I
no.
had found this, I'd always had jobs that I really loved. I worked in the nonprofit world and in service or humanitarian aid realm and really believed in what I was doing. And I was still struggling. There were days that felt like drudgery, days that felt boring, days where I argued with my coworkers, days where I
Yeah.
just was unfulfilled. And so I began to kind of ask myself, well, where do we think our meaning is supposed to come from? And how do we define happiness? And that's really what started it. And then I started thinking about all the other areas of my life.
Right.
Marriage. I married
Yeah.
the nicest guy I've ever met. Like, I'm pretty sure he's the nicest guy I've ever met, but marriage is still hard.
Yeah.
Church was difficult. It was a
Mhm.
challenge.
Mhm.
Parenthood, all these different things. And so I started just examining some of the myths we believe about the emotional prosperity, is what I call it, the emotional prosperity that we think these areas of our life are supposed to deliver to us. And that's why I wrote the book.
That's so good because, you know, the title of the book is Holy Unhappiness, but God, goodness, and the myth of the blessed life. And
Mhm.
I think that those of us who been in church for a long time have grown up with that myth,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because I have the favor of God and I'm living
Yes.
the blessed life. And every time you ask somebody how they doing, how's it going, I'm blessed. Everything is blessed, blessed and highly favored.
Mhm.
And that's real. That may be your reality at that time, but that's
Yeah.
not the reality all the time,
That's
right?
right. Right.
I think that we have. I like what you say when you say emotional
Mhm.
prosperity,
Yeah.
and I want you to expound a little bit more on that because, again, even with the prosperity,
Mhm.
gospel, name it and claim it, grab it and
Mhm. Mhm.
grab it and blab it and grab it, and all of
Mhm.
these things
Mhm. Mhm.
about how we get more and how we have abundance, which I'm for. I love
Mhm.
abundance. We all
Yeah.
want abundance, right?
Yeah.
Abundance emotionally, we want it mentally, we want it, financially, we want it
Mhm.
spiritually, but it's to think that that is the way that life is always going to be
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
absolutely a myth, and it is something that I know that has been preached over and over and over again. So I want you to talk to us about emotional
Mm.
prosperity. For those of you that are coming in really quick before Rachel, before Amanda starts, I want to make sure that you all know that this is Amanda Held Opelt. We are talking about holy unhappiness, God goodness, and the myth of the blessed life. And so she is breaking down to us about this book. I'm going to encourage you to purchase the book, right? And so Pastor Sue is going to already drop it in the links. We want you to purchase it, but there's going to be a free book giveaway. We want you to type the hashtag in, hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, right? So that you can get this book. Make sure that you support her in her work. But we also, again, we're going to give away the book as well. And we want you to also purchase it where books are sold. You can go to her website at www.amandaheldopelt.com. Yes.
Yes.
And we want you to make sure that you support purchasing this book as well, and you'll see it all coming on the Beyond the Gatekeepers page, on Bishop Yvette Flunder's
Mhm.
page, on Sakara Solutions page. It's everywhere. So before
Thank
you
you.
start, make sure we want you to make sure that you are hearing what she's saying tonight, because it's very thought provoking and it's very moving. So
Mhm.
tell us about emotional prosperity.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of pointed out there is a an iteration of the Protestant movement that is the prosperity gospel, which is kind of this belief that God doesn't want you to be sick, he doesn't want you to be poor, he wants you to experience material abundance, he wants you to be healthy, and it's that whole, yeah, just like you said, kind of name it and claim it and da-da-da. That was never something that I really ascribed to, and most of the people in my circle didn't ascribe to that belief, and they kind of thought, like, suffering's part of life. And some of the best people I've ever known in my life got sick and died. It wasn't for lack of faith, it was because that's life. That is what it is to live in broken bodies in a broken world.
No, I won't.
And
Wait. Stay right there with that,
okay.
because I think that people don't get it,
Mm,
right? I think that people, when people get sick, you know what I'm saying? We go through these things where we push people, right?
yeah,
But you said something so powerful. Is what it is to live in broken bodies,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Sometimes these bodies are going to break down.
yes,
Sometimes it's going to come out of nowhere, right? Sometimes it's
yeah,
something that we can prevent, but then sometimes it's something that we cannot prevent,
that's
right?
right.
And
Yeah,
sometimes we try everything that we can,
yeah.
but death still comes,
It does. And
right?
scripture's pretty clear about that.
Yeah,
That, we are supposed to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom, Psalm
yeah,
90.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that there's a sense, there's a finiteness, there's a limit. We are limited, our bodies are limited. This is what it means to be human in the aftermath of the fall. And
yeah,
that's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to absorb, but it's reality. Um, and having known very good, faithful, filled people who died, who got cancer, who were sick and never healed, I never really fully bought into this idea that we were always going to be healthy, and that if I just believed, I'll be healthy. But I did subscribe to this kind of subtle spin-off of the prosperity gospel, which is what I call the emotional prosperity gospel. This idea that if you believe all the right things and make all the right decisions, that you might not be healthy and wealthy, but you are going to be happy. So there's going to be excitement and fulfillment in your work. You're going to be always relationally, emotionally fulfilled in your marriage. The couple that prays together stays together. You're going to be happy all the time with your partner if you are both following the Lord. Is this belief that even in my grief, that if I were to experience sickness or I were to experience loss, that my right theology, my structurally sound theology of suffering would somehow buoy me up and out of the pain, that I'd feel a peace that passes understanding. And so it really was with the death of my sister that this concept was solidified in my mind, because I remember thinking the day she died, all right, Holy Spirit, I'm ready for that peace that passes understanding. And I prayed for it, and people around the world prayed for it for me. And
absolutely.
and I
Eh,
still felt like I was being tortured by my grief. It was so painful. Grief was awful, and I didn't experience that peace, for a long time, and there are still days today that I don't experience it. So then I was like, "Well, what have I been duped? Like, what what happened? Is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my relationship with the Lord? Is it what's going on here?" And that's when I really began to unpack, okay, well, what are some of these expectations we have about what our faith is supposed to do for us emotionally? Not just
yes,
physically, not just materially, not just financially, but emotionally. What do we think it's supposed to do for us? And that's when I started to really untangle this stuff.
yeah. Amanda, I just want you to know that you're freeing people even right now with that,
Mm,
just that openness, what you're saying right now, right? Claudette Abney says, church
mm,
gave me a beat down about having lupus. I was born with this. I did not commit a sin. I became
mm.
some sort of it became some sort of crime. And that's what
Yeah.
happens. Like when some people doing all they can to get well, to get
Yeah.
better, right?
Right, right, and I
You
mean, it's internalized ableism in many ways.
yes,
Amy Kenny's book, "My Body Is Not a Prayer Request," highly recommend, where it's this idea that it will only when you experience this grand, miraculous feat of human strength or a miraculous healing, then God is good, right? Then,
yeah,
then your faith has proven to be strong. And she's like, that's ableism. That is a false anthropology. That is we are not living into our anthropological ethics when we believe that God
Yes.
has to make our bodies perfect, whether that's perfectly healthy, perfect, whether it's perfectly thin, or whatever body
Whatever.
standard
Sure.
is the trend at the time. The fact that we
Exactly.
have trends associated with bodies is wild and
Yes, it
completely
is.
broken. But all of
Yes.
that we don't need some physical transformation in order to say that my body is good. God is with me in this body, no matter what its ability is, no matter what it looks like, no matter what standards it does or doesn't meet, whatever worldly standards. But yeah, it's this idea that like you got to have the feelings of happiness, the experience of healing, the emotional prosperity in order for God to be good, in order for my faith to be good. And I reject that now,
I reject it
but
too.
not for a long time. I bought
Right.
into it for so long.
But you know how many people are so this, I mean, in and of itself, but we haven't even touched the surface of this book. But just what you're saying is so liberating to so many
Mhm.
people because this is what we have come to know. And
Yes.
so what if my marriage is not working?
Yeah.
What if, you know what I'm saying, grief has overwhelmed me and I can't get free
Yeah.
of, you know what I'm saying, or unburdened from death, or, you know, or
Yeah.
even divorce is grief. You know what I'm saying? I can't get unburdened from it. Does that mean that God doesn't love me? Does it mean that I have done something wrong? Does it mean that I'm forever taken out of the book of
Mhm.
life? I mean,
Mhm.
I have watched people go through emotional and mental and physical pain
Yes.
because something wasn't removed.
Yes.
Somebody wasn't healed, right?
Yes.
Marriage wasn't saved. You know, they didn't receive the miracle like they
Yes.
wanted to receive it.
Yes. The strongholds weren't broken in this lifetime,
The
right?
strongholds weren't broken.
Yeah. And gosh, thank goodness for the vulnerability of Paul in scripture where he says, "I have a thorn in my flesh that has
Yes.
plagued me from the beginning, and
Yeah.
I have prayed for it to be taken from me." Now, we scholars debate what that might be. Was it depression? Was it a physical ailment? Was it an emotional ailment? Was it a sin? Was it a besetting
Right.
sin? We don't know,
We
but
don't
all
know.
we know is that the man upon whose shoulders God built the church in the Western world, he struggled his whole life with something, and that was
Mhm.
not a sign that he wasn't meeting God's approval or that God wasn't with him. God was absolutely with the Apostle Paul.
Right.
Um, and that I think that just kind of I love that that what Denise Fortson shared. She said, "I agree that grief
Yes.
is awful, but the church thinks we are not supposed to grieve for a long period of time. It's this, we are an instant gratification culture. We are a microwave culture where we
Yes.
think that I want, what do we get for bereavement leave?
Right.
5 days. It's like
Right.
we want our grief to go away quickly. We want our ailments to be solved immediately with a pill or something. We want the our marriages to be repaired and fixed the next day. I mean, but many of these painful situations we walk through in life sometimes take a long time,
Yes.
sometimes an entire lifetime.
That's right. Sometimes people never get over, you
Yes.
know, and I think that we push people, you
Yeah.
know, they would have wanted you to go on. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, but this gonna take a minute.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody loses their, I don't care who they lose, you know, whoever's dear to them, because I don't want
Yeah.
to say, you know, have a hierarchy of who's, you know, but
Grief is
somebody,
grief.
grief is grief, and you have to
Mm.
give people the opportunity to grieve, to
Mm.
cry out, you
Yeah.
know, even at funerals. I know look at the family, they're just acting out, you know, oh, they over there crying. Yeah, of course they're acting out.
Yeah.
What do you want
Yes.
them to do?
Yes.
There's somebody that they won't see in this body anymore, right?
Yes.
And yes, we know we have a hope and we know all of that, but still, you know, what I have come to know and I've come to learn just over the years, there's no time frame to grief.
Yeah. There
You know,
isn't.
I was talking to my mother the other day. She'll be 85 next year, but some kind of way we got on my grandmother, start
Mm.
talking about my grandmother. And, you know, she said that she misses her mother and it was just like it was yesterday.
She's still grieving.
Do you
Yes.
understand? And that
Yes.
was, my grandmother's been gone for over 25 years.
Yes.
But the fact
Yes.
of the matter is that was still her mother,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
grief is grief.
Yes. I'll have to, my publisher will be happy with me. I'll put a plug in for the very first book that I ever wrote was called A Hole in the World. And it was a book I wrote in the 2 and 3 years after my sister passed away. And I examined grief rituals from the past, grief rituals that had kind
Yes.
of gone extinct, if you will, no
Yes.
longer practiced, and what those grief rituals had to teach me about the grieving process. And the very first one I studied, the one that actually, gosh, made me want to do the project to begin with, was Irish keening. And it's this wailing that they do at the wakes and funerals, where these wailing women, they were women in the community who were midwives,
Mm-hmm.
and they were keeners or criers or wailers, and they would come and help people. Just they would gather all the friends and loved ones and the neighbors and into the room, into the home of the deceased, and they would literally scream, moan, cry, sing, wail for an hour, 2 hours, however long it took. So
However
it
long
was
it takes.
Yes, yes, and this is still practiced in many African nations.
Absolutely.
In the Western world, it has died out. But it
Mm-hmm.
was this idea that, hey, we now, if you were to wail at a funeral in America, people would say they're acting out, like you said, or they would be judged like they're not okay. But in
Mm-hmm.
Ireland, in the ancient days of Ireland, it would be like, if you are not wailing, you are not okay. Something's
Right.
wrong with you. So
But
this
even in African
permission.
American, yes, African American culture, the same thing. Like, they
Yes.
say, let's call for the wailing women. And
Yes,
those women
Jeremiah.
they came specifically, to services to do that.
Yes,
So
yes,
that, and I think that if we did it more, it's cathartic. So yes,
yes,
you may need to go to grief counseling, but you also need to get it out.
yes,
And
yes,
what better way to do it with family and friends and people that you love, that are among you. You know
yes.
what I'm saying? It's hard,
It is
but
hard.
I want you to tell us a little bit about, because all that can still be holy,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes. So I think that when I think about what does it mean to endure through grief, because I have learned that grief is not a burden you ever lay down. You just develop the muscles to carry it. You develop
Yes.
the strength to carry it. And there's something about this idea of acceptance. If I can just accept that life is going to be hard, whether it's grief over death or the difficulty of motherhood. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we're in the thick of it, in terms of the caretaking and the crying and the diapers and all of that. And this is hard. Like it's just hard. Work, most jobs, even if you have a job you love, the perfect job, is going to be hard. Most marriages, even if you married the nicest person you've ever met, there are going to be seasons where it's difficult. There was something about my life where I needed to accept that it was hard, and that was not because I had failed. I'm not failing as a mother because I'm tired. I'm not
That's right.
failing as a griever because I'm still in pain.
That's
I'm
good,
not
Amanda. So
failing as
good.
a wife because I'm struggling, you
That's
know?
right.
Um, and sometimes I think, now you tell me what you think. I'm curious your opinion on this, that we have this kind of aversion to pain and negativity.
Mhm.
And, we can analyze all day long why. Maybe it's because, the American optimism or whatever that's kind of woven into our DNA. I mean, they say it's literally woven into the DNA. If you are of European descent, it is because your ancestors came here to leave behind bad circumstances in the homeland. It's this idea that, like, well, we don't want to suffer. We're going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, that myth of the bootstraps, of
Right,
just
right.
make my life better. And we're an optimistic, positive culture. We're a culture where we have a lot more control and agency over our lives than we have for most of history. It's kind of an illusion of control, right? We don't have full control. We don't have total control. But yeah,
Right.
I don't know. Is that something you've observed too? That we as a culture, we don't like to accept that pain is part of life.
I think that we don't want to accept that pain is a part of life. So
Yeah.
one of the things I think from an African American perspective
Mhm.
is that, you know, suffering is overrated because we've suffered for so much that people don't want to suffer, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
people, they watch their children suffer. They watch their, mothers have watched their, grandmothers have watched their children, and so
Yes.
forth and so on. Or children have watched their grandmothers and grandfathers suffer, or one generation suffer. And I'm never going to be that way, and we're not going to suffer. And
Hmm.
we're going to have
Hmm.
everything. I know people right now who, the minute their cupboards are cupboards or pantries are half full, they
Yeah.
start losing it. Feel like they don't
Yeah.
have enough. I know people who buy abundance of food, and abundance of tissue, and abundance of everything,
Yeah.
because they didn't have enough
Yes.
when they were coming up, and so they don't want to be the people that don't have enough,
Hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
and so they don't want to be the people that suffer,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
I believe that I don't believe that we should stay in a constant state of suffering, but I
Right.
believe that there's some points in our lives where we're not going to have everything that we want when we want it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what does that do to the psyche of a person,
Hmm.
right? When they're
Hmm.
not getting everything the way they want, when they want it, and how they want it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think that there is a space for the unhappiness, and it's all about, also, Amanda, where your happiness is set in. Because if your
Hmm.
happiness is set in all exterior things,
Yeah.
other people, so I feel like happiness is within,
Yes.
and then it comes out, right?
Yeah.
And so other people just add to my happiness.
Right.
Other things just add to my happiness. It's not those people or
Yes.
those things. And in the minute that those things go away,
Yes.
then I'm unhappy. My
Right.
whole life is turned upside down.
Right.
So I think you said it right when you started talking about, it's all about where your happiness comes from.
Yes. That's so true, and I think it's also this willingness to believe that happiness and suffering, joy and pain can coexist,
Yes,
and
it
that
can.
they can run parallel to one
Both
another.
and it can be
It's
both
it's the
and.
both and. But now, of course, we love to categorize our lives as either like w- life is really hard, things are bad now, or things are great now, I'm blessed now, this is great. This was something that became very real to me when my sister passed away, because my youngest daughter learned to crawl the week my sister died. And this baby of mine, we had gone through a season of infertility, a season of miscarriage, and so this precious and let me tell you, y'all, she slept through the night at 6 weeks. She was a dreamboat of a baby. She only giggled. She never cried. I was Life was just filled with delight during that
Yes.
season. And then my sister died. And I
Yeah.
was like, I have no idea what to make of this, because here I am taking so much joy and delight in this little girl who's at the beginning of her life. And now my sister's at the end of her life. And how do I hold these two things together? And you realize that one doesn't negate the other. They just coexist in some kind of tension, or maybe union. Maybe that's a better way to put it. They exist in union together. And I think the other thing, that part of the reason I titled my book Holy Unhappiness, is when you look at the word holiness in scripture, it's kind of meant to be sanctified, or set, something that's set apart for a
All right.
purpose.
Mhm.
And I just think that our unhappiness can have a purpose, has a purpose to play in our lives. And so if we're always stuffing it down and pretending that we're too blessed to be stressed, I'm like,
Mhm.
we're stressed. It's okay. We're
That's
stressed. It's hard.
okay.
We're
That's right.
blessed and we're stressed. We're
That's
both, and
right.
it's
It will
okay. It's
both.
not either
Exactly.
or.
That's
And I
good.
once we say, okay, so what's happening? Why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling restless? Why am I feeling anxious? What does that emotion have to teach me about my circumstances? Maybe it's telling me there's something broken here. Maybe there is something wrong in my marriage that I need to address and we need to work through. Maybe the job's not right for me and I need to work that out. Or maybe this is just what it means to be human in the aftermath of the
Yes.
fall, and I need to just
That's
accept
good.
it. And
Yes.
so it's listening to your pain. It's being willing to listen to your pain, listen to what hurts instead of shoving it down, instead of numbing it or labeling it as unholy,
Listen,
labeling it as not pleasing to the Lord.
this is so good because we always talk about, oh, we have to go through the wilderness experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wilderness experience ain't nothing fun about that wilderness experience.
No.
Whatever's leading you to that wilderness experience, I'm pretty sure it was not a good situation, right?
Yeah.
Whatever was leading you to that, it's I'm sure that it was not a good situation that led you into that wilderness experience,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes.
So whatever it was, right? So at the end of the day, you still had to sit in that wilderness or walk
That's
through
right.
that wilderness or, feel the pain of that wilderness. And you
Yes.
didn't just, it's just like, oh, I use the wilderness. We can talk about being tried in the fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still
Mm-hmm.
have to go through those things. We talk
We
about when you
do.
tried in the fire, you come out pure gold. Well, that fire is going to be some unhappiness.
It's
That fire
true.
is not going to be,
Yes.
no fire that I know is a delight.
No, it's
Nope.
not like a cute little fun temporary experience that you can put as like a feather in your cap of like, oh, I
Yeah.
went through a hard time. It's actually not fun at all. If I think it was Barbara Brown Taylor who said, like, a wilderness actually feels like a wilderness. When you're in the
Yes, it
wilderness,
does.
you might get eaten by a bear, you
Come on.
might be left for dead, you might
Right.
starve, you might drown or die of
All
thirst,
kind of things.
whatever. You are
That's right.
exposed to the elements. You are truly at risk of death. And so
Yes.
we've got to understand that it when we say, Lord, if take me to the wilderness if you want to teach me, or if you say you're willing to go to the wilderness, it's gonna be painful. It's
It's
gonna
going to
be
be painful.
painful.
Yep. And I think that learning how to sit in that
Yeah.
painful place, in that unhappy place,
Yes.
I think that it helps us because it's come to teach us something, right? And
Yes.
for those of you that are just coming in, I see you all just joining in. I appreciate it very much. Facebook Live, YouTube. We have Amanda Held Opelt here with us, giving us some tidbits because I don't want to give everybody everything. I want you to buy the book too, and of course we're going to give it away as well. So make sure you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. She is going to give away a copy of her book, and so we're very happy about that towards the end of the conversation. But Amanda, I have this question, and we're going to open it up for questions.
Mhm.
Make sure you put question, and then make sure that you write the question out, but put the word question so that we can know that you're actually asking something. So here is one, and it says, I wonder, though we know that life is filled with various sorrows, should we embrace suffering as God's will, God's purpose? Do we have to suffer to be close to the divine?
Mhm.
Is suffering a prerequisite to experiencing God's goodness?
Ooh, I love this question.
Me too.
It's a good one because my goodness, if you look at the early church, they almost had like martyrdom fetish. Like the early church mothers and fathers all wanted to be martyred because they thought that was kind of like a way to be esteemed and prove that
Uh-huh.
you were up to muster, I guess, in terms of
Right.
your faithfulness. And I don't think we should do that.
Yes. Yeah. Me
I,
neither.
because and I've seen this. Okay, if this is a not fully formed thought, I'm going to test it
That's
out
okay.
on y'all. But what I've seen is that as we're now moving away from the toxic positivity, which I'm thankful for, praise Jesus, we're now moving towards more honesty about our pain and talking about our pain and lament and the holiness of lament. Us white folks have the Black community to thank for a lot of that, because you all are well versed in lament and the role of lament in justice. I'm grateful. So we're moving away from this toxic positivity. But as we do that, there could be a temptation to just stay there and marinate and be defined by our pain, as if our pain somehow makes us special or proves that we're tough, or so spoiler alert, I know you said you didn't want to give away everything in the book. But
That's
I'll
okay.
I'll I'll tell y'all the ending. Surprise. I actually think God wants us to be happy. I think he wants us to take delight in the goodness of creation and in the good gifts that he gives us, namely his presence. And
Mhm.
so it's not that I think God wants us to stay there. I think it's more just that we tell ourselves the truth about the reality of our circumstances. The truth will
Right.
set you free. The truth is things should not be this way. Systemic injustice, this should not be abuse. It should not be death. Death is not
Right.
part of the original plan. It should not be, and it causes us pain. And yet, our ability to hold on to our hope, to hold the joy in tension or in union, as I said, with the pain, is an act of resilience and an act of resistance against the trials that we face in this life. And I think the reason I know God doesn't want us to be in pain is because when Jesus was in pain, when Jesus was faced with the prospect of the cross, he didn't say, well, God's closing a door, so he's going to open a window, or I'm too blessed to be stressed.
You sure
No,
didn't.
he almost had what some clinicians say was a panic attack in the Garden of
Uh-huh.
Gethsemane
Yes, he
and
did.
said, don't
Yes, he
make me
did.
do this, God. I don't want to
That's
do
it.
this. He
He
was
did what any human would do.
what any human and
He was
the
human. And
incarnation.
he showed his humanity in that garden.
Yes.
He showed his humanity. I think that is the piece. Oh, we look for God's divinity all the time. We look for divinity. We look for divinity, and that's fine.
Yes.
But we gotta be able to deal with the humanity of it so that we can deal with us.
Yes. You're
Right?
absolutely right. And that's what I think. God, what a gracious choice on the part of our God. And this is why the story of Christianity is just one I can't walk away from, despite my doubts. This choice of the incarnation to be fully human and present in the pain of humanity.
Yeah.
Jesus chose to be born into a colonized corner of the Roman Empire. He was not living the hashtag blessed life by
Hello.
anybody's standards. You
Okay.
know, he was poor. He was crucified before he was age 33. His followers
Absolutely.
left him.
Yep.
Scripture even says he wasn't anything pretty to look at either. But we
Right.
love our handsome Jesus paintings, or whatever.
Exactly. It's true.
But scripture tells us he didn't have anything that social media would say, hey, this is the hashtag blessed life. And
Exactly.
so he stepped into that pain and he wept and he grieved. And all throughout scripture, not just in the life of Jesus, but we see a very emotive God, a God who, when he sees pain, when he sees injustice, when he sees the pain of his people leaving him, he cries out like a woman in labor, we're told.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think that's an indication God doesn't like pain. He doesn't like sin. He doesn't like sorrow. He doesn't like death. He grieves over it. And so we don't need to chase it like it's some medal of
Exactly.
honor.
Okay. Or
God
wear it like
wouldn't chase it.
exactly, or wear it like a trophy, or wear like
Yes.
a medal around our neck. And I
Yes.
and I and I watch people do that, and I know I feel like sometimes in our churches, like that's what we teach people.
Mhm.
I mean, even it's all in our songs. If I suffer, I'll reign with him. Well,
Mhm. Mhm.
why can't I just reign with him? I mean, I'm not going to say that. Again, we know some rain is going to happen in our life.
Yeah.
Into each
Yep.
life, some rain must fall. Right? We
Yes.
understand that. We understand that we get the rain and we get the rainbow. Right? But
Yes.
we also know that there's something that you said. It can be both and, right? There can
Yeah.
be joy and there can be pain.
That's
Or
right.
joy and sorrow, right?
Yes.
There's healing and there's sickness. And then it's all about how you look at the sickness and
Yes.
how you look at the healing. Because
Yes.
maybe I was suffering so much in this body,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That my
Yes.
healing came when I left this earth,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
That's the hope we hold.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing, and this is, I've heard it said, it's a feature of modernity, that like this always upward moving, like we must always be improving, we must always be getting better, we must, and suddenly then suffering becomes an optimizer.
Yes.
Suffering becomes a thing that we're like, well, this will make me better. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I will get better. I will improve. This, like, again, it's kind of this obsession with improvement.
Yes.
And the one of the most important things I had to let go of when Rachel died was to say, I don't have to find the purpose in this pain to be okay. You know what I mean? Because I started hearing people start saying things about silver linings, or like, well, don't you see God's working through this? And so this is gonna, again, it's that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, let me be clear. I actually think God does often use our pain to grow our empathy. We learn that in, I think, 2 Corinthians. He uses it to increase our dependence on the Lord, all of these things. But we don't have to, it doesn't have to serve a utilitarian purpose for us to
very good.
to still endure, if that makes sense. And to say it like we don't have to find a reason to label our pain as good. It can just be bad. Just let it be bad. Like, I will never,
bad, and it's okay.
I will never say that Rachel's death was good. I will never say that.
No,
no matter what good comes of it, no matter what blessings or whatever kingdom growth even comes because of it, it'll never be good. It'll never be good.
And
It'll
I want to
always be
speak to
bad.
the people, because many of you may not know who Rachel is, because she still is. Her essence is still in the earth, right?
Yeah.
Rachel Held Evans, a world-renowned Christian author. There are several books that Rachel wrote. Rachel died about 4 or 5 years ago, right?
That's right. 4.5.
And it was not something that anybody expected.
Yeah, very sudden. Yeah,
very sudden death, right?
Yeah.
And so many books, so many writings, all over the place. And now Amanda is an author and a songwriter, and she has left a legacy, not just for her children, but for her entire family, and for the Christian world. All right. And so I like what you're saying about that. Like, her death will never be good.
Yeah.
And I think we want to try to make everything always good.
Yes. We want to escape the pain one way or the other.
That's it. We want to get out of it. We want to get out of the pain.
Yeah.
I see you, Deacon Ryan. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to say that Minister Toya said what comes up for her is that we focus a lot on the letting go, but sometimes it's how we let go. And I think that part is not honored enough.
Yeah. Yes. Because I think what matters maybe more, again, this is all so sticky. My thoughts meander, and they're not fully formed as I say them. But I think part of, I love that sentiment. It's not in letting go, but it may be how, is that, like, it's not just, do I feel better? Is this pain going away? But there is something about character formation that matters in it. Like, is this pain going to make me bitter, hateful? Is it going to make me stuck? Because I think it's okay to carry the grief forever, but I'm always going to be stuck and turned inward. That there is a refining that grief does for you. And can I maintain my integrity in it? I think that's something that I felt important to me. And now I'm getting emotional thinking about it, is not that, like, I need to make this go away. I need to make this feel better, or I need to redeem her death. I realized about 10 hours into it that I wasn't ever going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But can I maintain my integrity? As I think my dad said, he used to pray every night on his drive to the hospital, because she was sick for about 2.5 weeks. As he would drive back and forth between the hospital and our house, he said, I will not let this destroy my faith. And that is my prayer, is that this will not destroy me. I'm not going to allow this pain to destroy me. It may break me, it may hurt me, but it will not destroy me. It will not rob me of the dignity of being human and being beloved of God.
Yes. That's powerful, Amanda. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have a question here. Well, first a statement. Then it says, Bishop Sonia Williams said, you made the statement, I don't have to find the purpose in this pain. Lord, what the preacher gonna preach now? Well, hopefully they'll find something else, Bishop. Reverend Randy L. Ware, he has a question. He said, are we dismantling and reconstructing the language and usage of how we use the word grief and death?
I do think so. Reverend Ware, this may be what you're wondering and thinking about, and so hit me with something else if it's not. But I think that we are beginning to think about grief as applying not just to death, but also to other losses, because there are profound losses and profound pains, and we go through some of the same emotional experiences that we do when people as when people die, and there are some, whether that's moving, losing a job, losing a friendship, a breakup, whatever the case may be, where we go through grief. And some people call that disenfranchised grief. I've heard
Yes, I have heard that.
miscarriage is often referred to as disenfranchised grief. Most people didn't
Yes.
know we were pregnant. I lost 3 pregnancies, and most people didn't know for either one of those 3 that I was even pregnant. So, it's not like you get the funeral and the casseroles and
Right,
the
right.
few remaining grief rituals that we
Yeah.
have.
You're
And
left with it
so,
by yourself, or with your husband, or with, or those that are clear, that are
yeah,
dear to you and close to you, right?
yes, yeah. So we invited people into that grief with us because
Absolutely.
we knew we needed it and it was
Yeah.
important. Um,
Yes.
but I think that I also think that there's something about that word death too that feels important. I always had, I've kind of stopped saying Rachel passed away. I've It's important for me to say that she died, because I don't, the
Yes.
euphemisms, but you know what, each to his own. Honestly, we're all just trying to manage our grief the best way we can. So I don't judge other
Yeah.
people for doing it. But for
Right.
me, I need to name this death, because to me death is an enemy. I think it's the enemy of God, it's the enemy of humanity, and we are subject to it, and it is not until new creation that it's fully conquered. But
Sure.
I need to name that she died, that I don't want to euphemize it. I want to name the severity of it, and I think using those kind of blunt language. I did kind of a study of the death announcements and how they changed between like the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And, it used to be poems that were very direct, like so-and-so is in the ground and their body molders here. It's like very
Right.
direct
Right.
language about what was happening. Suddenly, gravestones used to have the skull, the symbol of death on them, as like just very clearly naming what had happened to this person. And now we're moving more towards, in the early 1900s, it was euphemisms. Oh, they're no longer moldering, they're slumbering here. And then you have carvings of angels on headstones, or lambs, or flowers. And so I'm pushing back against this euphemizing of death. I think we need to name it and say what it is. So in some ways, so we're prepared when it happens in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that, Amanda. Thank you so much. Listen, we are in conversation with Amanda Held Opelt, Holy Unhappiness. And it was both the part A and part B of the title just struck me. I just was like, wait a minute. What is she talking about? And she goes through, for those of you that want to go through this book at your church, and you may want to have a Bible study, it has a companion, a discussion guide to it, right? So you can order
That's
the
right.
discussion. You can actually download the discussion guide
Mhm.
as well, so you can have it. From chapter to chapter, she talks about work, and that's what I want to talk to you about: work,
Mhm.
because you worked at a lot of places. You moved
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
but you said some very positive things. You talked about how you can be working and serving and just be tired,
Yeah.
tired
Yeah.
of all of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and a lot of it is because I think that I just had, and this is where that word myth comes in, these mythologies that we believe about what the good life will look like. I had this myth that if I was serving people, that I'd always feel fulfilled. And it turns out loving people is really hard. It'll make you really tired. I worked in a nonprofit world, serving underemployed women, and kind of caught up in some of these generational poverty cycles. Learned a lot about poverty in the U.S. and some of the systemic issues that undergird all of that. And, then I went overseas, and I was not an actual aid worker. I like to be clear. I didn't save any lives. I was doing staff care for aid workers, but it took me all around the world to these really, really tough places where there's famine and warfare. And it was pretty exciting for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also kind of, well, this is kind of confessional time. A lot of the when I'm drawing kind of the excitement and the enjoyment and the fulfillment of my work from other people's suffering, there's something a bit predatory about that I had to kind of rewind and learn and say, okay, if you're really serving people, it's about the people. It's not about your experience. And when you really give your heart to serve, it's hard. It's painful. It's wearisome. And that's just the reality of work. The ground of our labor is cursed. This is very clear in Genesis 3. We sow seeds, we reap thorns and thistles. Nothing we do in labor is going to be easy. And so so how do I work in a way that honors God? And I see it in millennials. I'm an elder millennial. They sometimes call me geriatric millennial, but I see it in millennials and Gen Z is that when the minute the job becomes boring or hard, we leave, we turn in our notice. I made a bad choice. I'll do something else. And the point I try to make in my book is don't quit, maybe quit, but don't quit because it's hard, because you will never find the job that's not hard. I mean, that's, turnover time for millennials like me is 2.5 years in a job. It's you're never going to find the perfect thing that's going to, our expectations are just so high. Expectations of happiness, a sense of entitlement to happiness for people that maybe grew up middle class, my demographic. Our sense of entitlement to happiness is pretty high, and we need to name that. You know what I mean?
That's good. Bishop Sonia said, most often it's thankless work. Mm-hmm. Your statement, loving people will make you really tired. It does. It's draining, right? And so we have to sometimes step back for renewal, you know what I mean? For sabbatical, for rest. And, sometimes people don't always want to understand that. Right? But I think that it is best for whoever is giving the care. I don't care what kind of care it is, whether it's pastoral care or whether you're caring for someone that is sick or whether you are, whatever kind of care that you are giving. I think that it's very important that people are able to step back for a minute, you know what I mean? And take a breather and get some air and because it is hard. It's hard work. And sometimes if you want to prevent burnout, right? This is something that we need to do. There's another question on the floor. Says, what are your thoughts on eulogizing people's loved ones?
Yeah. Well, oh my goodness, my mentor, somebody I really care about, she just lost her sister. Her sister battled drug addiction her whole life, and it ultimately took her life. And it's hard, we were talking about the funeral, and it's hard to plan a funeral like that. And so I don't know what the heart of that question is or what the experience is that led to that question. Because I think
she used eulogizing, which means to speak well of. And perhaps if you don't know that person, how can you really do that? I'm not sure. Bishop Sonia, will you clarify for us in terms of your question?
Yeah. And I think there is a way, and I love how my mentor did this at the funeral, that you honor the dignity of every human person, because I think that's another thing. It's a kind of a subtle underlying thread, is that we are all broken in some way. We all struggle in some way. We all cause pain. We all receive pain from one another. We are humans living on this hot planet together, and there's going to be pain between us. And we can also honor the divine image in every single human being, no matter what they struggled with. And that to me is what a eulogy is being able to see the good and to honor that divine image. Again, lest you think my book is all sadness or that I am an apologist for unhappiness, I actually make a great case that let's take delight in life and let's take joy in life, and that some of the greatest blessings I've ever known didn't come from the script or the checkbox list of all the things I was supposed to have to make me happy. The white picket fence, the perfect job, the perfect husband, the 2.5 kids, the whatever. The greatest blessings came from the simple God-given pleasures that I was able to be present for because I wasn't striving for that perfect life anymore. When
Right.
instead of just striving for the perfect job or worrying about whether or not I could get pregnant because that season of infertility, can I be present with my loved ones right now? Can I be present for this meal? Can I be present in all the good that this person has to bring, even though there is sometimes pain there? I mean, again, it's not toxic positivity or clarify. I'm not saying just take the abuse and forget about it and only see the good. What I'm saying is, can we be present for delight when it is offered to us? And I think that is something that is the blessed life to me, is being present for both the pain and the joy, because we can't
Yes.
selectively numb, as Brené Brown has been so good to tell us.
Yes, indeed. Bishop Sonia said she was thinking in terms of your statement, death is an enemy and we should name it.
Yeah. Yeah, as that I think that when we eulogize, I mean, we were very careful not to call Rachel's funeral a celebration of life, even though I actually understand why people do that sometimes. I'm not saying that's a choice for everyone, but we wanted to name. She was 37 years old. She
Yes.
had an 11-month-old and a 3-year-old. We are grieving. We are in pain. This is a funeral.
Period.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And after everybody finished celebrating, we're gonna still be grieving.
Mm.
We're gonna
Yes.
still be hurt,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Her
Yes.
children are still grieving, still
Yes.
grieving her loss, and I understand that. Dr. Perry says, I am listening and thinking, especially as a survivor and identify as a person of faith. I think that we are able to fully intellectualize these ideas, but
Mm.
I find that when we are in our houses of faith, we return to the very things that we have rejected.
Mm.
Death gets associated with goodness and badness. Recovery is the same. It is deep, and I do not know how we move from discussions like this to our
Mm.
pulpits and congregations. Very good,
Yeah.
Dr. Perry.
Man, I think it's about weaving moments of lament into services. We try to do that at our church, as we try to tell people, no matter how you come into this service, you may be in pain today. You may not feel like celebrating. That is okay. There is space for your pain. We try to name it. We try to do teaching series on the experience of pain and of grief. But again, I don't think that means that we don't also then praise the Lord, yet, that there's all the Psalms of lament, which are 1/3 of the Psalms, by the way.
Right, right.
All the Psalms of lament, they have a moment of clarity in which we say, God is faithful, God is present. But something I like to say is that our hope, the joy of the Lord, it doesn't, it in the joy of the Lord informs our pain.
It
It puts
does.
it in perspective, but it does not always make it go away. It doesn't
That's correct.
diminish it. It informs it. It
Yeah,
it equips us to move through that pain.
yeah, yeah. And lament is definitely an integral part of our faith.
Mhm.
Um, Bishop Sonia says we've been taught to lift up the family and make
Mhm.
them feel better, so we find ways to make light of death.
Yes.
Right?
This is
Yeah.
why people say ridiculous things when you're grieving,
Yes.
is because
It,
they want you to feel better. I don't resent people for the crazy things they say when people are grieving, because we're all novices really when it comes to death and grief. But I think they say those things because they want you to feel better, and they're just doing their best, and we just
but
need
I
more.
think that
Yeah.
people should practice the ministry of presence. Sometimes
Yes,
you don't have to say anything.
that's right.
Sometimes just sitting with a person.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of saying, oh, they're going to be a flower in God's garden and all of
Yes.
this other stuff that people
Yes.
come with, that's not
Yes.
very helpful. right? And
No.
sometimes you can just say nothing. And
Yeah.
it's okay to just say nothing. It's
Yeah.
okay to hold somebody's hand. It's okay to sit next to somebody, you know
Yes.
what I'm saying, and not say anything. It's
Yeah.
okay
Or just say, this is terrible. I'm here,
until they say something.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Maybe they want to say
Yes.
something or whatever,
Uh,
maybe you could say, "I'm just glad that I'm happy. I'm just that I could be here with you during this
yes.
time."
Yes. You're
You
not
know,
alone. You
something like
know,
that. It's very, very, very challenging. I'm gonna read some of this, and then we're gonna. If you have questions, make sure you put it because I want to wrap this conversation up, and I
mm,
want to make sure that we can give away this book. But I also want to invite you all to purchase the book. Uh, I love the truth and realness and acknowledging people's true emotions instead of making them feel less of a believer because they are mourning. Thank you for
mm,
that. That was
mm,
from Bishop Sonia. Also, Deacon Christina says, I find myself silent or somewhat distant when time of giving condolences and then help after the funeral. It's so tough for families after memorializing a loved one with so many people in one day. It seems like much work for the family.
yeah.
Another pastor, Pastor Pam says, yes, just be present.
Yeah.
That works, you know. Somebody says, I've even began to challenge death being an enemy.
Mm,
It's a requirement here, at least for
mm,
now. I also feel part of the grieving process is how we've been taught, trained, and those are the tools we go back to, including our experiences. It's all
mm,
complicated, and everybody has. Thank you
yeah.
for that, Minister Toya. Everybody
Yeah.
has a different experience.
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Stacy said, just make space for someone.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody else says, Millie says, just showing up.
Yeah.
Uh, Dr. Perry says to what I said, yes, just hold a hand. Yeah, sometimes, sometimes our words get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we say things that, what I mean, are triggers. And,
Yeah.
I could be sitting there and I'll be saying to myself, I wish they shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? No,
Oh,
that's
I've had
real.
that thought.
Like,
It's real.
yeah,
It's
like
true.
that,
Yeah.
that's real. Like, like sometimes, like, just don't say anything. And then, sometimes we say, oh, well, I know how you feel. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Because my relationship with the person that's gone is not the same as your relationship
Yes.
with the person that's gone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you don't know how I feel. I think that it is just best to sit with people, to be present, and if you don't know what to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay to just be there. It's okay to hold somebody's hand. It's okay to, if they allow touch, it's okay for you to rub their back.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's even okay for you to sit there and cry with
Yes.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I talk a lot about this actually in my book, A Hole in the World. I learned a lot from I have a Jewish friend, Shelley, who lost her mother and her sister in a car accident on the same day. And she talked to me about Shiva and kind of the rules of sitting Shiva, that it's a
Yes,
7-day period, and that the
yes,
condolers, or the people offering condolence, they mirror the actions of the griever. And so
yes,
if the griever is sharing stories and laughing, then you share stories and laugh. If the
yes,
griever is crying, cry with them. If the griever is being
yes,
silent, be silent with them. If the griever
yes.
wants to go to a movie, go to a movie, because
Right.
grievers sometimes want to go to the movies.
That's right.
It's just like, we're human too. We sometimes just want to do something that feels normal. And so
Yes.
I learned so much from, and it is, the mourning process is up to a full year in Jewish culture, and then they memorialize it once a year as well. So I learned so much from my friend Shelley, that I wrote about, and that's chapter 3, I think, of that book. But
Yes, 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 yes. Listen, I want to let me read this last statement. Somebody said the ministry of silence.
mhm,
Yes, Kelly.
mhm,
And then also yes, the gift of presence. And Pastor Pam said the greatest gift during my wife's transition was being surrounded by people who checked on me and the children.
mhm, yeah,
Talana was on her journey. We needed people present with
yeah,
us. She was in
yeah,
conversation with God. We had to experience the grief of our
yeah,
loss.
yes,
Yes. Bishop Sonia says she's actually sat Shiva with the family.
mm,
It's actually therapeutic.
yeah,
And I think that we just have to find ways to help people grieve,
yeah,
because sometimes the tools that we were taught are not the appropriate tools to use.
mm,
And it's about, you know, getting some new tools in our toolbox
Yes.
around that. But this book, like you said, is not all about unhappiness,
Hmm.
but it does get us to some joy,
It
right?
does. And
And
hope and
hope.
delight and
Yes,
the way of Jesus, I think of, and again, it's why I haven't left the faith yet, is that
yeah,
there's
yeah,
something about walking in the way of Jesus. And he said it's narrow, it's a
yeah,
narrow way, but
yeah,
the ethics of the way of Jesus, humility, justice,
yeah,
serving others, it's never led me astray. It doesn't mean that I'm always going to be happy or I'm always going to feel good, but to walk in the way of wisdom, which is to walk in the way of Jesus, to me creates an environment that is conducive to
yeah,
flourishing, not just for me, but flourishing for my neighbor as well.
yeah,
And that is the blessed life. Shannon Martin said something to me that has really stuck out to me. She said, if something is a blessing, it can't be something that's exclusive, a
yes.
mansion that most people will never have access to,
I like
or I don't know, some political decision that
yes.
you wanted but other people, whatever it may be. If it's a blessing, it must be accessible for all.
I love
And
that.
that's why she directs people to look at the sky, because the
Yeah.
sky is this beautiful canvas
It
above
truly
us,
is
she says.
accessible to all of us.
Yes, hope, grace, love. These are blessings that are accessible to all.
Yeah.
That is the hashtag blessed life in my
I love
mind
it.
now.
I love it. Thank you so much, Amanda. You are a blessing, right? You
Thank
are
you.
you are the hashtag blessed life.
Ah,
The book is amazing. I encourage us all to purchase the book if you haven't purchased the book. Again, there's a discussion guide. Uh so Minister Toy said, "Don't leave, Amanda. Stand
mhm.
by. It's full circle. You have community. It's all right." And I
Thank you.
love
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I
I
love
believe
that.
it.
I think that everywhere you go,
Hmm.
as you continue to talk about this book, you're going to find more and more and more community,
Yeah,
right? And and
yeah,
and
I
no-
believe it.
and no one is ever going to take Rachel's place,
Mm,
but God certainly will send people to your life
yeah.
uh, to be a sister to you as well.
Yes, and I've experienced that, and that is indeed a blessing.
I love
So,
that.
Bishop Brown, thank you so much for inviting me. This conversation's been so encouraging, and I've appreciated your insights and the wonderful comments to it. Incredible insights that y'all have all offered this evening has been helpful to me.
As Bishop Sonia said, you helped us tonight, and you
Mm,
truly did help us tonight.
thank
We appreciate you so much. Listen, we're gonna just read one advertisement, and then we're
you.
gonna go right to giving away the book. Hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, all one word, no spaces. Hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, all one word, no spaces, to win the book tonight. Or you can purchase the book at any bookstore, wherever they're selling books at, Amazon. You
Yeah.
can get the book. You can go to her website,
Mhm.
www.amandaheldopelt.com.
Yeah.
All one
Okay.
word. It's right there on the screen.
Thank you.
www.amandaheldopelt.com. You can order straight from her. Let this book bless your life. Let it bless your family, your friends, your church, your ministry. It can be a discussion, but you want to do that. But make sure you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so that you can win the opportunity to get this book tonight. And so we want to thank you for your support. And if you feel so inclined, we would love for you to send a donation to our Cash App at $ TFAM Annual, or to our PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. You know that we are trying to further the vision of Beyond the Gatekeepers. You know that Beyond the Gatekeepers is current events through a theological and justice informed lens. And we have authors and filmmakers and those who are impacting the world or for the better or for good. And so we invite you all to participate by giving a donation to, again, our Cash App at $TFAM Annual, or to our PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. Now, we want to get right to it. We appreciate you all so much. Amanda is watching on tonight, and so we want you all to be able to win this book. Somebody said whoever wins still has to purchase the book and pay it forward or pass on the book when you're done. I like it. However you want to do it, we appreciate it. I think I like the first piece of it, because if you just pass on the book when they're done, then people won't buy the book, right? And we're trying to get the book moving from its place. So if you win, we ask that you pay it forward and you purchase the book for somebody, okay?
Or you know what? Just telling a friend about the book, or posting about the book, or
Heard
write a
that?
review. All that stuff helps authors. So
I love that. Thank you, Amanda. All right, here we go, Pastor Sue. Dre Winston, if you're still with us tonight, I saw you in the chat earlier. Dre Winston, you have won a copy of the book for tonight. Please go to Beyond the Gatekeepers page, go to our message, and make sure that you leave your full name. Yes, he is present. Thank you so much, Dre. Make sure you put your full name and your address. We're going to get that to Amanda, and Amanda's going to get your book to you. Congratulations, Dre. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on tonight. Such a powerful conversation. Listen, you can still share this conversation with somebody else. Share this conversation. You can share this link and share it with others, because I know that they will want to hear what we were talking about on tonight. Want to invite you all to be with us on next week. Next week, we're going to be talking to Dr. Brad Braxton again and Dr. Anthony Penn with their book, A Masterclass on Being Human. A Masterclass on Being Human. Dr. Brad Braxton and Dr. Anthony Penn. You don't want to miss us on next week. Make sure you share this conversation that we've had tonight with your friends, families, your church members, and all that good stuff. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening, and God bless you.